Inside your head, there's this biological supercomputer that's running at a scale that's almost impossible to imagine. Today, we're going to dive into one of its biggest secrets, how it completely masters time.
See, it's not just about being fast. It's about being perfectly, and I mean perfectly, on time. Think about it. Catching a ball, understanding what I'm saying right now, or even just having a single thought. All of that requires billions of signals to hit their target at the exact same microsecond. So how on earth does the brain pull off this incredible time?
Okay, so to really get a handle on the brain's timing, we've got to look at the wiring first. Let's break down the basics of this biological superhighway.
First, let's just talk about the scale, because wow. Your brain has something like 80 billion nerve cells. We're talking neurons here. And each one of those is like a tiny little processor, right? And it's connected to thousands of others, all firing off these little electrical pulses. The number itself is it's staggering.
So the wires that make up this whole network, they're called axons. You can think of them as the long-haul truckers of the brain, carrying signals from one neuron to the next. Sometimes they stretch all the way across the brain. They are the information superhighways for sure.
So what makes these highways so incredibly fast? Well, the answer is a substance called myelin. It's this fatty stuff that wraps around the axon, kind of like the rubber insulation you'd find on a copper wire. And what it does is it stops the electrical signal from leaking out, and that allows it to just jump along the axon at unbelievable speeds. For decades, this has been the standard textbook answer. Neuroscientist Martin Collet has this great way of putting it. He says, you have a huge power plant between your ears. And that's so true, right? It's dynamic, it's powerful, but a power plant isn't just about generating raw energy. It's about reliable delivery. And that's where things get really interesting.
So we've known for ages that myelin is the brain's speed booster. But some researchers, specifically at the Cool Group at the Netherlands Institute for Neuroscience, they started thinking, is that really the whole story?
Yeah, the classic textbook idea is super simple. Myelin equals speed. End of story. But what if it's doing something else? Something maybe a little more subtle, but even more critical. What if it's not just about how fast the signal gets there, but how reliably it arrives?
Their big idea was this. What if myelin is also the brain's master timekeeper? What if its real genius isn't just speed, but making sure those signals are incredibly precise and consistent? We're talking arriving on a razor's edge every single time, without fail.
So how in the world do you test an idea like that?
Well, it's pretty direct, actually. If you think myelin is responsible for precision, you get rid of it and see what breaks. And the team designed this really brilliant experiment to do exactly that.
Okay, here's how they did it. First, they picked a very specific neural pathway in a mouse's brain. Then they used a special chemical to carefully, selectively strip the myelin off of those axons. So now the wires are unwrapped. Next, they used this amazing technique called optogenetics, which basically lets you use light to fire off a nerve signal with perfect timing. So they send this perfect pulse down the pathway, and then they just listened. They recorded the signal at the other end to see what changed.
And what you're seeing here is the result of that unwrapping process. On the left, you've got a brain slice just glowing with healthy, dense myelin. But look at the right. After the treatment, you can see that insulation is way, way reduced. The stage was set.
All right, so what happened when they sent that perfectly timed signal down the damaged wire? Well, the results didn't just confirm what they thought might happen. They gave us a huge new insight into how the brain actually works.
Here's the key thing. The signal didn't just get slower. That was expected. No, it also got messy, unreliable. Instead of this sharp, predictable pulse arriving at the other end, the signals came in all delayed and, as they called it, jittery. Basically, they were all over the place, totally inconsistent. And the data here just makes it crystal clear. If you look at this chart, that first bar shows the delay in the signal. Yep, it went up, just like they thought it would. But look at that second bar. That's the jitter, the inconsistency. It shot up by over 400%. This is huge. It shows that myelin isn't just the gas pedal, it's more like a high-precision timing belt. And without it, the engine of the brain starts to sputter. Okay, so the signal gets a little jittery. You might be thinking, why is that such a big deal? A few milliseconds here or there, what does it matter? Well, in the brain, it's the difference between everything making sense and total chaos. It's because your brain relies on a process called coincidence detection. Now, the best way to think about this is like a neuron that will only fire its own signal if it gets a perfectly synchronized high five from a bunch of other signals, all at the exact same instant.
If one of those signals is even a little bit late, the hi-fi is missed. The moment passes. The message gets lost. In the brain, timing isn't just important, it's everything.
All right, so let's just quickly recap the big takeaways here. We now know that myelin has this crucial double duty. It's not just for speed, it's for the microsecond precision that all brain communication relies on. When that myelin gets damaged, signals get delayed and they get jittery, and that totally messes up the brain's timing. And this is a huge deal for understanding diseases like multiple sclerosis, where we see myelin being destroyed, leading to all sorts of symptoms.
This research really does rewrite the textbooks on a fundamental piece of the brain. It just goes to show you that right under the surface of things we think we understand, there are these amazing layers of sophistication. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other huge secrets are just hiding in plain sight, coded right into the wiring of our own brains?